The first time Emma heard the melody, she was 5. It drifted through her dreams like a soft river, notes weaving in and out of moonlight, wrapping her tiny frame in warmth she couldn't explain. She'd wake up with her hands still floating in the air, as if playing invisible keys. Her mother always smiled at her stories. "Maybe it's a song waiting to be born," she'd say, tucking the blanket beneath Emma's chin. But Emma knew the song wasn't new. It felt old. Older than the stars outside her window. By the time Emma was 22, the melody was her secret companion. It had never left her, not through the chaos of teenage years, not through the numbing loneliness of college dorm rooms. It was there, always, in the quiet. The problem was, she had never heard it in real life. No radio station played it. No classical archive had it. No one else seemed to know it existed. It only lived in her dreams. Emma lived in a small, cramped apartment above a bookstore in Charleston. It wasn't much. A squeaky mattress, a desk that wobbled, and a kitchen that smelled like burnt coffee. But it was hers. Her mother had passed away 2 years ago. Stroke. Sudden. The kind of grief that doesn't break you in one blow, but chips away day after day. Emma had no siblings, no cousins close by. It was just her and the song now. Every night, when the world outside dimmed, she'd lie in bed and wait for the dream. And every night, it came. One morning, after another sleepless night, Emma stood in the bookstore, sipping cold coffee, watching the rain blur the windows. That's when she noticed an old man standing by the corner shelf. He wasn't browsing, he was staring, right at her. His coat was soaked, his hands trembled as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded, yellowed paper. "Are you Emma Hayes?" he asked, his voice rough like gravel. Emma blinked. "Yes? Do I know you?" The man's lips curled into a sad smile. "No, but I knew your father." The words hit her like a tidal wave. "My father died before I was born," she said, breath catching. The man's eyes softened. "Yes, but he left something behind. Something for you." He handed her the paper. It was a letter. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, it means you've heard the song." Her knees nearly buckled. "I don't know if you'll believe this, but the melody is a part of you. It's been waiting for you, like it waited for me. You see, some songs aren't meant to be played in front of crowds. They're meant to be heard in dreams, passed down like stories written in blood." Emma's eyes blurred. "There's a piano. It's hidden, waiting. When you find it, you'll understand. Follow the melody, Emma. It'll guide you home. Your father, Daniel Hayes." The old man introduced himself as Henry Blake, once a fellow musician, once her father's closest friend. He told her stories of Daniel Hayes, how he wasn't famous, not in the world's eyes, but to those who knew him, his music was like breathing life into silence. He used to say, he whispered, that the best songs are the ones you can't hear with your ears, only with your soul. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small, tarnished key. "He left this for you too. Told me to keep it safe until the time was right." Emma's hands trembled as she took the key. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the floor of her apartment, letters spread before her, the key glinting under the lamplight. What piano? What melody was waiting? And why now? A thought struck her, a place she had almost forgotten. Her mother had once mentioned an old family cabin in Blue Ridge, a place they used to visit before Emma was born. It had been abandoned for decades, swallowed by time and trees. The cabin stood like a relic of forgotten dreams, weathered, sagging, but still standing. The front door creaked as Emma stepped inside. Dust motes floated in the sunlight, slicing through cracked windows. The air smelled of wood and rain. She walked slowly, each step echoing through the hollow space. And then she saw it. Tucked in the corner, beneath a faded white sheet, was a piano. Her breath caught. She pulled the cover away, revealing an old upright piano, its wood scratched, its keys yellowed with age, but it was beautiful, familiar. The key Henry had given her slid perfectly into the lock at its side. With a soft click, a hidden compartment popped open. Inside was a music sheet, blank. Emma sat on the piano bench, staring at the empty staffs. Confusion twisted inside her. What was this? A cruel joke? Then she noticed something. Her fingertips, tingling. She placed her hands on the keys.
And without thinking, without knowing, she began to play. The melody from her dreams. It flowed from her fingers like it had always been there, waiting. The notes filled the cabin, not just with sound, but with presence. She felt it. Him, her father, as if his hands were guiding hers, as if his laughter still lingered in the rafters. Tears blurred her vision. For the first time, the song wasn't in a dream. It was real, alive. The next morning, Emma woke up with the piano melody still echoing in her ears. It was as if her dreams had followed her into the daylight. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring out of the window, watching the morning sun melt the mist over the hills. But her mind was elsewhere, on the music, on the man at the piano, on the way his fingers had danced over the keys, and on a strange, undeniable pull in her heart. At breakfast, she couldn't keep it to herself any longer. She looked up at her mother, who was buttering toast, her movements automatic, mechanical. "Mom," Emma began, hesitant, "did Dad play the piano?" Her mother's hands froze for a moment, just a second, but Emma noticed. "Why do you ask, sweetie?" her mother said, her voice light, too light. I've been hearing this melody in my dreams, a piano piece. It's always the same. And last night I saw him. I think it was Dad." Silence fell across the small kitchen table. The only sound was the hum of the old refrigerator. Her mother's eyes softened, but a shadow passed over them. She reached across the table, took Emma's hand. "Your father was a brilliant pianist. He could make a piano sing, but we never had one in the house after he passed. You were still in my belly when the accident happened." Emma's throat tightened. She knew her father had died young, but the idea that she had never even heard his music, yet was dreaming of it, felt impossible. "Mom, do you have any recordings of him? Anything?" Her mother shook her head, a sad smile playing at her lips. "He never recorded. He said music was meant to be alive, not trapped in machines. It's like," she paused, thinking, "like it only existed in the air for those who were there to feel it." Emma sat back in her chair, stunned. The melody that had haunted her for weeks wasn't from a record or a video. It was from somewhere else, somewhere deeper. But how? the old music room. That afternoon, Emma found herself wandering into the attic. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, streaming through a small round window. Old boxes, faded photos, and forgotten furniture crowded the space. But in one corner, beneath a moth-eaten tarp, stood something tall and familiar. Her heart raced. She pulled back the tarp, revealing a piano, its surface scratched and dulled, with its keys yellowed with age. The lid was slightly ajar, like it had been waiting for her. Emma sat on the old piano bench. She had never taken lessons, never read sheet music. Yet, as her fingers hovered over the keys, she felt a strange certainty. She pressed down a key, C, then another, a chord. Her fingers moved almost on their own, fumbling but finding their way. And then it happened. The melody, the same melody from her dreams. Slowly, note by note, her hands pieced it together. She wasn't playing it. It was playing through her. Tears welled in her eyes. It felt like her father was there, guiding her hands, filling the attic with music that had been trapped in silence for years. A hidden composition. Days turned into weeks. Emma found herself returning to the attic every evening. The old piano, once neglected, now became a portal, a place where she felt closer to her father than ever before. But the melody wasn't enough. There had to be more. One rainy afternoon, while rummaging through a chest of her father's old things, Emma discovered a leather-bound notebook. The pages were yellowed, but the handwriting was neat, precise. It was a music journal. Inside were pages filled with notations, sketches of keys, and lines of lyrics that seemed unfinished. But what caught Emma's breath was a single line written at the bottom of the last page. "For my daughter, whom I'll meet in dreams." Emma's hands trembled. Her father had written this before she was born. He knew he wouldn't be there to raise her, but he had left her something. A message, a song, a piece of himself. Suddenly, the melody in her dreams made sense. It wasn't just a song. It was a conversation. Meeting Mr. Wen. Feeling a need for guidance, Emma decided to visit the town's only piano teacher, Mr. Wen, a man well into his 70s, known for his eccentricities and his unmatched love for music. Mr. Wen's house was a wonderland of sound. Every room had an instrument, every surface was cluttered with sheet music. When Emma explained her dreams, the melody, and her father's journal, Mr. Wen didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Music," he said, "has a memory longer than we do. Sometimes it carries messages we can't explain." He asked her to play the melody. Nervous but determined, Emma sat at his grand piano and let her fingers find the familiar notes. Mr. Wen listened, eyes closed. When she finished, he was silent for a long time.
"I knew your father," he finally said. "He once told me he was working on a piece, a lullaby for his future child. He said it wasn't finished yet, but it would find its way to her." Emma's heart thumped. The melody wasn't complete. It was waiting for her. Under Mr. Wren's tutelage, Emma began to understand music. Not just the mechanics, but the emotions, the breathing soul behind every note. They spent hours piecing together the fragments her father had left, and slowly, with trembling hands and a heart bursting with connection, Emma began to add her own. She wove her story into the spaces her father had left blank. One evening,
As twilight bathed the town in a soft purple haze, Emma sat at the attic piano. Her mother sat quietly by the stairs, listening. The melody flowed from Emma's fingertips, not just her father's notes, but hers too, a duet across time. When the final note hung in the air, a hush fell over the attic. "I think he's heard it now," her mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. Emma smiled through her own tears. "No, Mom, we've heard it." The next morning, Emma awoke with the melody still lingering in her mind, but something felt different. It wasn't just a song anymore. It was a message, a calling. At breakfast, she couldn't stop glancing at her grandmother. "Nana, did Dad ever leave behind a piano piece? A melody he played often?" Her hands stilled over her teacup. The color drained slightly from her face. "Why do you ask, Emma?" "I've been dreaming of a song. It's always the same. I feel like I'm supposed to know it, like it's his." There was a long pause. Margaret sighed, folding her hands carefully. "Your father, Michael, was always at that piano long before you were born. He had a melody. He never gave it a name, just called it the lullaby for someone I haven't met yet. I thought he was talking about a future daughter." Emma's heart thudded. Margaret continued, "After he passed, I couldn't bear to listen to it anymore. I locked away his sheet music, his recordings. Maybe I shouldn't have." Emma pushed back from the table, the realization sinking in. "Nana, where did you lock them away?" Margaret's gaze shifted toward the narrow hallway, toward a door Emma had always assumed was a utility closet. "The attic room. But be careful up there, dear. Memories can be heavier than they seem." The attic wasn't what Emma expected. It wasn't dusty or abandoned. Instead, it felt frozen in time. Shelves lined with vinyl records, a wooden chest, and, covered in a beige cloth, a piano bench. With trembling fingers, Emma lifted the cloth. Beneath it was a simple, upright piano, the wood slightly worn, but the keys perfectly intact. She sat down, heart pounding, and her fingers, without conscious thought, played the song. Every note from her dreams flowed effortlessly, as if her hands remembered something her mind had not yet grasped. As the final note echoed through the attic, Emma's vision blurred with tears. She noticed a small box wedged beneath the piano bench. Inside were reel-to-reel tapes, meticulously labeled in her father's handwriting. For her. For Emma. Margaret helped Emma set up the old tape player in the living room. As the reel spun, the crackling sound of static gave way to a man's voice, calm, warm, and unmistakably her father's. "Emma, if you're hearing this, I'm not sure where I'll be, but I know where you'll find me. In the music, in every note I ever wrote for you." The recording played snippets of his compositions, some rough, some polished, but at the heart of them all was the lullaby. "I played this melody before I knew your name, before you were even born, because love doesn't need to wait for life to begin. This song is yours. It always was." Emma's breath caught. It wasn't just a melody, it was a bridge, a voice reaching across time, life, and death to tell her she was loved even before she existed. Margaret wiped her eyes silently. "Your father, he always believed that music could reach places words couldn't." Emma nodded, her heart overflowing. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself spending more time at the old house, drawn back again and again as though some invisible thread tied her to it. Each visit brought new discoveries. Boxes of letters her father had written to her mother, faded photographs where smiles still glowed through the dust of time, and pages of sheet music, handwritten, filled with notes that seemed alive. But the piano, it remained stubbornly silent. Each night, though, the melody would return to her dreams, vivid, haunting, and impossibly familiar. One evening, after another fruitless attempt to play the melody while awake, Emma slumped against the piano, her frustration mounting. "Why can't I find you?" she whispered to the keys. That's when Mrs. Adler, the old neighbor, appeared in the doorway. She had been quietly watching over Emma these past weeks. With her came stories. "I used to hear your father play," Mrs. Adler said, lowering herself on the worn-out armchair by the fireplace. "But what you hear in your dreams, that wasn't written for the world. It was for you, before you were even born." Emma's heart raced. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Adler smiled wistfully. "Your father, Michael, believed music carried pieces of our souls. He said that melody was his promise to you, that even if life kept you apart, his love would find you in dreams." Emma was silent, tears pricking her eyes. For years, she had thought of her father as a distant figure, a ghost of stories, but now she realized he had been singing to her all along. That night, Emma stayed at the house. She sat in the music room, surrounded by her father's things, letting the silence envelop her. At midnight, the dream came again, but this time it was different. She wasn't just hearing the melody, she was in the room. She could see her father, young, alive, vibrant, sitting at the piano. He was playing the melody, and when he turned, he looked straight at her. "You're not alone, Emma. You've never been." Emma woke up with a gasp, her heart pounding. And then, for the first time, the piano keys answered. A single note, soft, resonant, echoed through the house. The air shifted. She approached the piano slowly, her fingers trembling. She sat down, closed her eyes, and placed her hands on the keys. And this time, she played. It wasn't perfect. The melody stumbled at first, but then it flowed. The song, her song, filled the house. And with it came a wave of emotion so overwhelming that it left her breathless. It was as though her father's hands were guiding hers, each note a conversation that had been waiting years to happen. The next morning, Mrs. Adler found Emma asleep at the piano, a peacefulness on her face she hadn't seen before. The old woman didn't say anything. She simply covered Emma with a quilt and smiled. Emma began to understand that her father's legacy wasn't a house or a grand inheritance. It was this connection, this music, the invisible thread that had pulled her through life even when she hadn't known it. She started documenting the melody, writing it down not as a composer, but as a daughter preserving a message. But the more she played, the more the house responded, as if the walls themselves had been waiting to hear that song again. Weeks later, Emma performed the piece at a small recital in a local community center. She hadn't intended to play publicly, but word had spread. People wanted to hear the song that came from a dream. When her fingers touched the keys that night, Emma wasn't nervous. She wasn't performing. She was sharing. As the final note lingered, there was a silence, not of absence, but of presence. The audience felt it too. A woman approached her afterward, teary-eyed. "I lost my mother last year. Tonight, it felt like she was here." That's when Emma understood. The melody was never meant to be a private gift. It was a bridge, a reminder that what we inherit from those we love most isn't always material. It's the invisible legacies, the ones that live in memories, songs, and quiet dreams. The old house became Emma's haven. She didn't fix every crack or polish every corner. She let it breathe, Let it be imperfect. She began teaching music to local children, using the house as a gathering place. The piano became a symbol, not of loss, but of connection. And sometimes, late at night when the world was quiet, Emma would play the melody once more. And in the echo of each note, she could feel her father, not as a ghost, but as a presence. The piano only played in dreams, until it didn't. Until it became a voice, a bridge, a promise that the ones we've lost are never truly gone. They are in the melodies we hum, in the stories we share, and in the parts of ourselves we thought were empty, but were always full of their love. Over the next few weeks, Emma couldn't stay away from the attic. She played the melody every day, perfecting it, letting her carry her deeper into memories she never lived but somehow knew. One afternoon, Margaret brought up an old camcorder. Your father wanted to record a final performance of the lullaby, but he never got the chance. Maybe you should. Emma hesitated, then smiled. Let's do it. They set the camera on a tripod, aimed at the piano. Emma took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and began to play. But this time, as her fingers glided over the keys, something changed. It was as if the room filled with an unseen audience. Not ghostly, not eerie, just a quiet, profound presence. The music felt alive, complete. When she finished, Margaret sat silently, tears rolling down her cheeks. "He's here, isn't he?" Emma whispered. Margaret could only nod. Emma decided to share the melody with the world. She uploaded the recording online, titled simply, "The Piano That Only Played in Dreams." She didn't expect much, but the world heard her. Comments flooded in. People shared stories of their own lost parents, their own invisible legacies, songs, recipes, paintings, things left behind that weren't meant to be kept in boxes, but lived. Emma's song wasn't just hers anymore. It became a chorus of voices of sons and daughters remembering the things their parents had left behind, beyond wealth or possessions. A week later, Emma found a letter slipped under the front door. It was written in handwriting she didn't recognize. Dear Emma, I was your father's student once. He taught me piano after school. He always said, I'm practicing for someone special. I never knew what he meant until I saw your video. Thank you for finishing his song. He would be so proud. Emma held the letter to her chest, overwhelmed. The melody had reached further than she ever imagined. That night, Emma had another dream. But this time, it wasn't just the melody. She saw her father sitting beside her at the piano, smiling, not saying a word, just being there. His hand rested on hers as they played the song together, note by note, breath by breath. When she woke up, the house was silent, but not empty. Emma stood by the attic window, looking out as dawn painted the sky in soft gold. She didn't need to chase the dream anymore. It had been real all along. And as she placed her fingers on the piano keys one more time, the music that once only lived in dreams became the song of her life, an invisible legacy now fully heard.